are at 99 dead in Van Buren from COVID. We have been there for about 7 months. Nobody has died from it.
99 who?
99 people died from COVID in Van Buren. And it has not changed for 7 months.
Too many.
Get ready, we're gonna start up in any minute now, any second. We do have a long meeting today, so, well, a lot of issues, I don't know, a little long.
Don't necessarily have to be long.
Yeah, okay. Hey. Meeting is called to order at 6 o'clock. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are being broadcast live over Van Buren 12 and on YouTube. Clerk Wright, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Kelly. Trustee Boynton. Trustee Martin. Trustee Frazier. Treasurer Bud. The clerk is present. Supervisor McNair.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The executive summary. Today, the first thing we'll be doing is a consent agenda. We'll be paying our day-to-day bills. We'll then be going to a public hearing to hear comments on the assessment roll for Homestead Condominium Association. There will be a presentation after that by Communications and a presentation by Plant Moran on our 2022 audit. We will then vote to approve the assessment roll of the Homestead Special Assessment District. And then we'll have a discussion on a pump station to route wastewater to the Brookwood Independent Senior Housing Project. We'll then discuss a variance to allow construction of a stormwater detention ponds and have a permanent pool of stormwater no more than 4 feet deep. We'll also discuss a water service agreement with Romulus over a house on Hannon Road. We will then discuss purchase of a new voting booth for the clerk's office at $48,000 and discuss this collection and management contract for trash services between the Township and Waste Management. And then we will have a discussion and a vote on the special land use request by BYC for planning, based on a planning case for a marina special approval for Huron River Drive. What did I miss? The 19th? Yeah. I'm sorry, we'll also be talking about the 19th. Okay. We're going to just have a discussion on recognizing June 19th as an official township holiday. My apologies. That's the executive summary. Adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion, we adopt the agenda as presented. Support.
Okay, I have a motion. I have support. Hearing no discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is adoption of the consent agenda. Who would like to read that?
Through the chair.
Let's go ahead, Trustee Martin.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda with the following items. Number 1, work study meeting minutes of June 6th. Number 2, board meeting minutes of June 6th. Number 3, special board meeting minutes of June 13th. Number 4, closed session meeting minutes of June 13th. Number 5, prepaid list of June 8th. Number 6, prepaid list of June 15th. Number 7, voucher list of June 20th, all in 2023.
Thank you. I've got support, Clerk Wright first. It's consent, so hearing no discussion. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next thing I need, Trustee Boynton, could you make a motion to go into a public hearing? Can I get support?
Support.
Got support. All in favor to go into a public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are now into a public hearing right now to hear any comments from anybody that wants to come forward to discuss the Homestead Condominium Special Assessment District. Is anybody here regarding Homestead that wishes to come up and speak? I'm going to ask one more time. Anybody from Homestead wishing to speak? Hearing none?
Through the chair, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
I have a motion to close. I have support to close. Hearing no discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're now at the correspondence, announcements, and presentations. Does anybody on the board have any announcements or announcements? Um, Does anybody from the public have any announcements? No. Okay. Our first presentation is going to be about our communications group. It's regarding, I believe, Liberty Fest.
Not Liberty, not
Not
Liberty
Liberty
Fest,
Fest, excuse me.
Lake Fest. So
I'll
during,
get it.
so during the Thrill in the Ville, we were contacted by the folks that are putting on the hydroplane races, the American Powerboat Association, and they have a couple spots. They do a large simulcast that is watched by many people, throughout the country that are into the sport. So they asked us if we had a couple 30-second spots for promotional ads for the township. So these ads were produced by Communications, so I wanted to thank Mike and Elena for putting the script and putting the video together, and also thank Tammy and Community Services, and with Ann Mary from the DDA, because one of them was more business focused, and we wanted to spotlight the DDA too. So I'm going to run two very quick spots that are going to be run during the powerboat races during their simulcast.
Welcome to Van Buren Township, proud home of the 2023 Thrill in the Ville hydroplane races. Nestled between Ann Arbor and Detroit, Van Buren offers an ideal place to raise a family and a vibrant local community. Whether you walk the Iron Bell Trail, relax by the shores of Belleville Lake, or enjoy the many parks, adventure is always around the corner. Coming soon is our brand new community center, amplifying the premier quality of life in Van Buren. Join us in Van Buren Township, where life is better by the lake. You'll love it here.
Okay, so that is the general township ad, and this is the one that spotlights the DDA and business. Or not much at all if it doesn't run audio. View. Don't know why it's running audio for one and not the other. Lower right. Mike, hello? You know why it'd be running audio for one and not the other?
I think VLC might be muted. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to Van Buren Township, home of the 2023 Thrill in the Ville on Belleville Lake, Wayne County's largest inland lake. Situated halfway between Ann Arbor and Detroit, Van Buren is the perfect location to grow your business or family. Our township attracts and supports businesses large and small and still retains a rural green profile. The township government, in collaboration with the Van Buren DDA, is a driving force, igniting growth and fostering success in the community we proudly serve. Come grow with us, where business is pure and simple.
Nice.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. These will be slightly edited and repurposed so they can be generally promoted to other of our social media sites after the powerboat races.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I did have an announcement I forgot about. Cranes ran a featured article on Van Buren Township on the Project One, $1.5 billion development. It was very well timed because it was at Mackinac when they featured it, so we looked like pretty big shooters on the island. So we are. And the state won a prestigious Golden Shovel Award for our MSU for the bringing Project One to Van Buren Township. So it's kind of cool. All right. Next one is our Plant Moran audit, our yearly audit, where we find out how we did.
Good evening. My name's Dave Helisek. I'm a partner with the Plant Moran, and with me this evening is Katie Alestra, a senior with the firm, and we're here to present the results of the financial statement audit for the Charter Township of Redford for the year ended December 31st of 2022. Prior to this evening, you should have received a copy of.
Redford, are we Van Buren?
Sorry. I do Redford's. The Charter Township of Van Buren for the year ended December 31st of 2022. You should have in front of you a financial statement, communication to those charged with governance, but the majority of our presentation, as it's been in the past, is the graph package. Prior to this evening, Katie and I did meet with Township Management to cover the financial statements in depth. We basically went through each of the funds as well as the notes to the financial statements, ensured that the information that was turned over for audit was properly compiled within this document. This document truly is the township's information. We just offer an opinion on the financial results. I'm happy to report, as a result of our financial audit, we were able to give an unmodified opinion to the financial statements. An unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance that we can give a set of financial statements. What that means is these statements, as presented, fairly reflect the financial position of the township as of December 31st, 2022, and the change in that financial position, or the revenues, the expenditures, the cash flows, and the notes that are recorded and reported within the document. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie, who's going to go over the graph package, those highlights. So if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to answer them, and then I ask them, and then I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about our letter. Katie?
Thank you, Dave. So we wanted to spend a few minutes to give an overview of the financial activity for the township for fiscal year 2022, which we will cover with these slides. So hopefully you guys all have one in front of you. Oh, hold on one second. Should be displaying this too. Oh. So. On this first slide, the slide shows the revenue for the general fund for fiscal year 2022, as well as the prior 3 years. Oh, can you guys not hear me? It's not plugged in. I don't think he has the right plug-in over here.
Just use the other one.
See if we can get the.
Oh.
I might have to toggle something over here.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
You gotta use this. Yeah, that kind of works. If you want to
Oh,
keep going, I'll
perfect.
try to switch it over.
Thank
to
you.
this one.
Sorry about that.
That should be good. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so this first slide shows the revenue for the general fund for fiscal year 2022, as well as the prior 3 years. Here you can see that the largest source of revenue for the general fund continues to be property taxes, including public safety, which increased slightly in the current year, mostly due to increases in taxable value. The second largest source of revenue for the general fund continues to be the other revenue, which includes things such as permits, fees, and license, which was consistent with last year. This year, the balance also includes $839,000 of funds donated by the Civic Fund to the general fund as a contribution towards the community center project. Okay. This next slide shows the expenditures of the general fund for fiscal year 22, as well as the previous 3 years. Similar to the revenues, the general fund expenditures increased in fiscal year 22 from fiscal year 21. You will see here that the public safety continues to be the largest expenditure of the general fund, with it accounting for about 53% of the total general fund expenditures. Once again, general government comprises the second largest percentage of the general fund expenditures at about 23%. You will also notice this year that there was a significant increase in expenditures related to the recreation and culture. This is most significant result of the expenditures on the capital projects, namely the new community center. This next slide shows the allocation of fund balance by category for the general fund for fiscal year 22 as well as the previous 3 years. For fiscal year 22, the general fund ended the year with a total fund balance of about $3.9 million, with about $391,000 as non-spendable, about $78,000 as restricted, about $760,000 as assigned, and the remaining about $2.7 million of unassigned. This last slide shows the operating revenues and expenditures of the Water and Sewer Fund for fiscal year 22 as well as the previous 3 years. Here you can see that both revenues and expenses of the Water and Sewer Fund decreased from last year, with revenues decreasing by about 3% and expenses decreasing at about 2%, about 2%, excuse me. As expenses exceed revenues again this year, there was a reduction to the ending net position for the Water and Sewer Fund for fiscal year 22. Okay. Lastly, we wanted to thank you for the opportunity to serve the township and for all the assistance provided throughout the audit process. Please let us know if you have any questions, and I will hand it back to Dave.
Yeah, you can leave that there. Thanks, Katie. Just a couple comments on Katie's presentation. In particular, when we're covering the revenues and expenditures in the general fund. So if I could ask the board to turn to page 56 of your financial statement, if everybody's got a copy of that. Tried. So what this says, let me unclip this.
56? What page?
56. So 56 relates to, it's really the general fund information that Katie had covered, but I really want to pay particular attention to the revenues in excess of expenditures, or in this case, the expenditures in excess of revenue. So really, when you take a look at where you thought you were going to be compared to where you ended up, I'd focus right here on this net change. So this is the final amended budget of the general fund, and you can see that the township anticipated to reduce its fund balance by about $5.7 million here at the bottom. You can see my finger here. Where you ended up was only reducing it by about $5 million. And part of this is revenue recognition as it relates to your ARPA monies. So the funding of your community project really is focused on multiple revenue sources, and depending on the timing of when those monies come in, as long as what specific monies are used, will have an impact on revenues versus expenditures in any particular year. So I want to make sure we keep in mind that while expenditures were in excess of revenue, at the end of the day, the township's general fund had ended up better than anticipated when comparing it to the budget.
I'll make a quick comment. So we were off 5 million, but what is not in here were expenses that we took on, like $1.7 million went into the community center, $700,000 into dispatch antenna, $500,000 to blended rate, $400,000 went to Wayne County's road initiative grant, which we are going to get the money back this year. Another $400,000 went to French Landing Park. We're trying to get some of these capital improvements completed. So we knew we were going to run a deficit this year, or in 2022.
And like I alluded, a lot of it, the revenues are going to just be reported into different years. So there's going to be some reimbursements to these costs just coming up. From a reporting standpoint, it's going to show in 2023 and going forward. The other area I'd like to point to is your legacy costs. So we talk a little bit about this each year, legacy costs as it relates to funding pensions and post-retirement benefit costs. So on page 57 of your financial statement, you'll see there's an eight-year history on the funding of the pension, and this will eventually get out to 10 years from an implementation standpoint. But you can see as of December 31st of 21, so this is related to the MERS plan. So the MERS plan, you actually report 1 year in arrears. But you can see that even though there was a significant increase in the liability due to a change in the assumptions, so there was a decrease in the discount rate that added an estimated $1.3 million liability. In 2021, your assets actually earned $2.7 million. So the fund itself, as of December 31st of 2021, the funding percentage increased from 77% to 79%. The 2022 information, I think, is slowly coming out now. MERS has finalized some of their actuarial information. So you're going to get a better feel for where the year ended up for December 31st of 2022 shortly. We're anticipating from an investment standpoint, maybe a step backwards, just based on where the market went last year. But we can see it's already starting to rebound here in 2023. The next item is the OPEB. So from a similar perspective, you're measuring what the post-retirement promises have been made from a liability standpoint compared to what you've put aside. To me, what I'd focus on is really this bottom line number, or the funding percentage. So it goes back to the first time it was measured under the standard back in 2017. So you can see the funding back then was 11.28%. Since then, the township has been extremely proactive about funding this liability, and it's up to 37.55% in just a 6-year period. So you went from this ending dollar amount of 2.9 million to currently there's almost 5.5 million set aside to cover future post-retirement benefits as it relates to health care. So the township's done a terrific job as far as funding that liability.
So we entered into a consent agreement with the state of Michigan that in 20 years, I think it was, we get to 40%. Was that what it is?
Is that, well, you had a corrective action plan.
Yeah.
So the goal is to get to 40%.
Yeah, so the goal is to get to 40. We're at 37, so we're very close, very quickly.
And that's absorbing, the 2022 impact on the market. So that OPEB calculation they had was as of December 31st, 2022. So that was, in that mid-30% number, even with the market hit that was taken last year. So again, from a funding percentage, the township's done a terrific job.
And I have to ask this question just because I'm not sure of the answer, but they should probably know. You recorded losses to our accounts because CDs had not matured yet, correct?
So as it relates,
that was part of the 5 million.
As it relates to the township, correct. And it doesn't really relate to it does relate to certain CDs. So the township is required under GASB 40 and GASB 72 to record investments at fair market value. So because of the changes in the market, as of December 31st, because of the increase in interest rates, if you were to sell, a CD at a lower interest rate or any sort of investment, it wouldn't have the same value as a higher rate CD. I mean, that's just what the market
But
is
if we
concerned.
keep it to
But
its
if you keep it to
term-
maturity, it's going to roll right back up to the cost number, and you'll regain those. So those investment, I'll call them investment losses that you might see in your financial statements, they're paper losses unless you would have to redeem it before maturity.
So the board should know that we took about a $400,000 paper loss because of that accounting method, okay?
Any
That
question?
was on paper only.
It's because we get a 6-month CD, we hold it for 6 months. We don't sell,
And any treasury notes. We're seeing that quite a bit, just out really everywhere that's holding something that any sort of investment that is holding something that is market sensitive. So again, as if you hold it to maturity, you're going to get, the face value of that investment. Any question on the financial numbers before I cover briefly the communication to those charged with governance?
No, not really. I do, but they're not questions, they're something I'd like to call out. So when you added in the landfill, though, we had a $3 million paper loss, correct?
I don't have the exact number in front of me. Let me see.
And I just wanted to call into attention that the balance sheet shows that we built $5 million worth of capital additionally that last year. So if anybody's wondering where the money went, that's kind of where it went, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it was a $3 million reduction, right? It's
More?
it's like in the general fund and landfill fund,
Yeah. General and
I think
landfill.
it's like closer to 300,000 or 400,000.
Oh. Okay, that's even better than I thought. I got 100 notes and I didn't see that.
So I'll move on to the required communication to those charged with governance, and we've broken it up into 3 parts as we have in the past. The first part is relates to internal controls. The second item is the required communications under the Auditing Standards 260. And then finally, our legislative and informational info that is not a required element, but it's something we've historically included in our end of the audit communication, just so you can have what we deem to be information that's important to the township kind of at the tip of your fingers. So in section 1, the internal controls, so we did offer an unmodified opinion on the financial statement audit. We don't do an internal control audit, but we are required to understand the internal control system, test the system, to ensure that the controls, as they're enacted, will result in providing accurate financial information for our audit. So we do that testing, and if we come across anything or any journal entries that are required to be made as a result of the township closing its year-end financial information, we report it in this document. So from an overall control standpoint that we tested, we had nothing to report from that aspect. We did have a couple of journal entries that needed to be made to bring the financial statement into compliance. I would say there was really nothing overly significant. It would have been nothing that would have been reported necessarily during the year. It was more of the closeout of the December 31st numbers as it related to cutoff and items like that. So from an overall standpoint, the books and records were in terrific shape. We really didn't have anything really significant to report out on that. And when you think about the number of transactions and now dealing with significant activity related to the rec center and the community center and whatnot, there's a lot going on. I mean, that center is actually, as I know the board knows, has got at least 5 different revenue sources coming in to fund that. And it's actually got to be tracked separately because each funding source has different rules. So there's the accounting for it, which we always talk about, but there's also a compliance component now that we anticipate will result in some sort of federal compliance audit for 2023. So I know we've had that discussion. We had that discussion in our draft meeting, but there's a lot going on related to that project, not only from a construction standpoint, but from a compliance and financial reporting standpoint. As far as the second item, the second part of the letter, that's the required communication to those charged with governance. So you recall, prior to the start of the audit, I would have sent out a communication to the board that it would talk about a little bit about our audit approach, how we were going to address the more riskier items from a financial reporting standpoint, and also gave the board the opportunity to reach out either to myself or Katie, if you had any specific areas related again to financial reporting or internal controls that you would like us to address. We do take that information when provided and tailor our audit approach to ensure that we address those concerns. As a result, you'd hope that this section 2 is kind of plain as it can be, and I'm happy to report that it is. Some of the terms are required terms, like you'll see a section that says significant audit findings. There's really no findings. All it's doing is saying there's no new accounting pronouncements that were implemented. There was no transactions that lacked authoritative guidance. Talks a little bit about estimates that are required as part of the audit process. So again, page 2 or part 2 of this was really nothing at all to be reported out on. The last part is the legislative and informational section. So again, we have some information on compliance. The township did, I'll say they did address the GASB 87, which was a new leasing standard. For the most part, the leases or the lease-like agreements that the township entered into were insignificant in nature, so it didn't have an impact on this year's financial report, but it is something on an ongoing basis that the township will have to make sure it addresses if it enters into any similar agreements. In this upcoming year in 2023, so there's going to be another standard that's very similar to leases, but it's going to really just be focused on information technology type agreements. So we'll be working with the township on addressing that as well. And then the final item that I included in here, and I'm sure everyone's aware of it because it was getting some good press, as relates to the inflation multiplier. So for the first time since Proposal A was enacted back in 1993, which put a cap on taxable value increases, the inflation rate for this upcoming year is 7.9%. But from a taxable value standpoint, taxable value can only rise by 5%. So there's actually a gap there of some 2.9%. So for all of us who love calculating, millage reduction factors and Headley adjustments, we're not anticipating there actually being a rollback maybe for the township this year, unless there's a significant amount of house sales and turnover and uncapping. So the 7.9 thing will probably keep revenues at least at around 5% year over year, not including new construction from a revenue standpoint. First time since 1993 that local units of government have seen a multiplier like that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions for the Charter Township of Red, or for the Charter Township of Van Buren that we may have today.
So we're basically in good shape, right?
The township is doing well. They are, you take a look, but I get asked that question quite a bit, but you never know what's next. So townships, if you think about how Van Buren is financed from a general fund perspective, you are really limited in your ability to raise revenues. So you've got a property tax millage that's limited by charter. As far as revenue, if we kind of throw the ARPA monies out, because I don't suspect we'll see anything, and hopefully won't see anything like that again, because that was basically COVID funding. You're relying on the sharing of sales tax collections. So those are your two largest sources of revenue. And obviously the township's fortunate to have the landfill royalties that help come fill in there. But from a general fund perspective, you're really limited in what you've done, and the township has really prospered based on, I'll call it that limited revenue, controlling your costs and still being able to provide, the township citizens the level of service that it does do.
And just because it is financial, we do have a AA rating now, which is equals with the state of Michigan and Canton, Livonia. We went up 2 notches, which we're pretty proud of, and we worked very closely with Plant Moran to obtain that. We're very proud of that. So, any questions? Thank you very much, Dave. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next year. But
Well, Ian, and if I can just close, there's a lot of folks, so we it's great for us to come up here and talk about unmodified opinion, but the folks that, we audited in there that are running your clerk's department, your treasurer's department, all those folks that are providing that information on a timely basis, that allows us to get through the audit, have this presentation this evening, and then be able to upload to the state within the statutory requirements. Really just goes to show you've got a terrific team. They provide us the information. They're great to work with. So I just want to make sure they get their kudos as well.
we did trigger, we are stuck in a federal audit next year, right?
Pardon me?
We are stuck in a federal audit next year.
So when we talked in March, it looks like that's the case. It appeared you were going to be using your ARPA dollars.
We are.
And as long as you've used more than 750,000, you will be having that federal compliance audit. But we've already done some of these from that standpoint. So the good part is you're not first through this, so we're already pretty familiar with the requirements.
All right, questions? Trustee Martin?
You mentioned the AA credit rating. Why don't you explain what that actually means for the township?
Me?
Yes, supervisor.
Okay, actually, could you, Standard & Poor's, yeah.
Money and the interest rates that charge you, that's what they're looking at when they're determining what your credit risk is. So it could lower the fees. It's definitely going to have an impact on the interest rates on any borrowings.
And because we had a lot of issues before, we had no capital asset plan here. We had no capital improvement plan here. We had no, we didn't have any money bankrolled. We had a fire department was falling apart. We didn't have any capital improvement fund there. We had Visteon. Because of all those things, we were very much downgraded by the banks before. But we showed them where we did develop a capital asset plan, a capital improvement plan, a plan to rebuild fire department. We rebuilt the fire department, all of our assets. We actually have a capital improvement fund for major capital improvements that could happen to us that's separate. And they were very impressed with that, and they moved us up 2 notches because of that. So, exciting. And our OPEB was 0 when we got, the last time we got 0% funded last time we got rated, so we're up there now.
I'd just like to say thank you to our treasurer and all the people that worked, and the clerk, and all the people that worked on this on our behalf. It's a good thing.
Yeah, just, it really is it's kind of like the federal government. People think I've got all this control. I don't. She has the finances and he controls the checks. It's kind of, I can't get anything done unless they both do that and agree, and checks and balances are everywhere here. And none of us, the 3 of us, can do anything without the vote of the board. Oh, it all comes together. Yeah. Mayors would hate this form of government. You've got to work together with everybody. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We're into public comment. This public comment section is for things that are going on today, on today's thing, such as the SAD and anything else that's on the agenda. You have 3 minutes. If you're going to talk on multiple decisions, I will give you up to 5.
4 minutes. I mean, I've
But
got
then
4
I,
things.
but then I will shut it down.
Well, that's not right, then it's 3 per item, and I've got 4.
No, that's not what it
Well,
says. But you can-
Because you're taking up my time right now.
I haven't started taking up your time.
Usually Leon's
I
right on
didn't-
top of
I
that.
didn't put that clock up there, but it looks like
I
somebody's
put
getting
that
ready.
clock up there, believe it or not. I put that clock up there 12 years ago.
It's
10
3
years
minutes per public comment, so if you got a public comment, it's 3 minutes. You can go to sit back down and ask for an additional time from the supervisor if you may wish, but for this comment, it's 3 minutes.
Each comment, correct. Okay, good
All right.
evening, board and staff. My name's John Delaney, resident forever here. 4 items that I want to bring up, and I'll just brief them over. The first one is, I've got the AFSCME bargaining agreement in my hand here. And I've been under the impression, or told today and in the past, because I'm out of town a lot, that it's already been signed, ratified, however it has been. My question is, if your item number 6 to approve another holiday came up, how come it's not on here? How come it wasn't bargained for beforehand and then approved beforehand, but now you want to put it in there for a day off? I don't care what the holiday is, it's a holiday. If we've already got 11 and you want to add a 12th one, why don't I see it in the bargaining agreement? Because now I see it on an agenda that was brought up by the clerk and then the trustee, and it wants to be put in there. To me, it's just not transparent that it comes in after the fact, if you had a chance to figure it out. I know Governor Whitmer sometime this week or next week is supposed to ratify it and turn it into a law also, and it's a federal holiday, but it's not like it just came up last week. Why wasn't it part of this negotiation so that it doesn't have to be talked about tonight as something that's just thrown out there? Any takers?
I'll take it when you finish.
Go ahead.
I want
When
you to
you
finish
finish.
first. Yeah, I want you to finish your comment.
Okay, well, for that one, that's it. If you
Go
want
ahead
me
and
to.
finish whatever you have to say. Then
Okay,
I'll
on to the next
reply.
one, number 7, the voting booths. I understand it's an improvement and all, but I don't see anything where you're either gonna remediate, or repurpose or recycle the old ones. Are we gonna give them to another community, or are you just gonna put them in a dumpster? The old voting booths. So if you wanna put that down as an answer too, that's a question. Because there's, anything that comes to the township can't just be given to somebody. It's gotta have a requisition of some sort, even if it does go to the dumpster. But I'd like to know where it goes, because we're putting out 48,000, we're putting 48,000 more into something. Are we getting something back for what we're getting rid of, even if it's broken or not? They're not all broken. I'll skip number 8, and we'll go to number 9. Being out of town, but watching and reading minutes and so on, how many board members are on, that are a member of the BYC, Belleville Yacht Club, and will be making any decisions at all? Because I would caution, and it may come up, it may not have came up, I know we have counsel now on the board here, anything that benefits a member of the private group, that it's a private club, kind of like the Moose or the Eagles or whatever, anything that's going to benefit, doesn't have to be financial, it's a benefit. And it's not a benefit to the whole corporate, the township is a benefit. So it doesn't have to be, it's an in-kind benefit, it doesn't have to be monetary. So if a board member, whether it's even on the planning commission or any other staff that has a voting position that will still benefit from that vote, should recuse themselves. And there could be conjecture or not, but there is a thought, and it's a legal thought, that the benefit does not have to be a financial benefit.
Okay,
The
finish it
benefit
up.
would be,
Finish it up.
okay, that's it. So you cut me off, but those are 3. Let's dive into those one at a time.
Leon, go ahead.
What do you mean there's no comment, Trustee Martin? You can't answer anything?
The chair, this is a public comment portion, and the public comments, and that's the end of it.
No
When we go
questions?
When we go through the agenda,
Do questions, you know that.
we don't go back
Never
and forth.
have.
I'm sorry.
Township ever get to talk to us though? Because it's gonna come up in non-agenda too.
I
I'm not done
called
with
you
this.
every time you call.
That's you, though. It's not a dictatorship.
Yeah.
There are 6 other people on that board that makes decisions.
Obviously, we're gonna have to answer your questions when these parts come up.
Regarding my item, you will get the answer when the item comes up for me to present. You get the answer to every question you just asked.
Okay, I'll be
So
listening
if you
for them.
stay around, you'll get the answer.
I'll be here. You know I will. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak on any issue before the board today? No? No? Last call? All right. Oh, yeah, come on up. Okay.
For like 21 years. My name is Miss Parker. I'm just wondering, like, what's the building? Like, there's a building, the new buildings that are going up. I just want to say, like, it's near Walmart. It's on Michigan Avenue. Like, I know they have the Chipotle, but I'm just looking at all of this new building, which is nice, but I like the country. But can you tell me what that is?
So we're not supposed to respond during this time, and this is usually a time when we talk about things that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay.
Yes, it is. She's talking about Myers and stuff.
No, she said Michigan Avenue. She said Michigan Avenue.
Michigan Avenue?
It's right.
It's not ours. But I have an assistant, Dan, who can get your telephone number, and I will call you and answer every single question you want on that, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys have a blessed day.
All right. Anybody else wish to speak? Nope, okay. All right. Moving on from public comment, we're on unfinished business, which we have none. First line item of new businesses is to consider approval of the annual audit. Can I get a motion for that audit?
Mr. Chair,
Treasurer Bud?
I make a motion that we approve the audit as presented by Plant Moran for 2022 of all township funds.
support.
Some point? Okay, since they just presented, hearing, I have a motion by Treasurer Bud. It is supported by Trustee Boynton. Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next item is to consider a resolution to approve the assessment roll for Homestead Condominium SAD. Can I get a motion?
Through the chair.
Wait, who said that? Okay. Okay. Trustee Kelly. And then,
I move that we approve of Resolution 2023-14 to approve the assessment roll for the Homestead Condominium Special Assessment District.
Kelly. Okay, Director Powers, or Lockett, or both.
Good evening, Board. I'm here before you for you to consider approval of Resolution 2023-14. This resolution is to approve a special assessment roll for Homestead Condominium. Here with me is part of the board. If you have any questions for them, they'll be glad to answer them. The Homestead Condominium Special Assessment District includes road improvements to all roads within Homestead subdivision. The purpose of the SAD is to raise funds of 100% of road construction. The cost would be up to $1,686,710,000, or up to $6,701.31 for each of the 267 properties within that project area. This will be for 5 years, which includes a 2% interest rate. Per Public Act 188 of 1954. So this process is one of many processes within a SAD, Special Assessment District, that we have to go through. As earlier, we went through the hearing, so we done went through several processes in this, and this is probably the last of many that we done went through. So, Homestead, if the board approves this tonight, big shoes to fill, and we expect to be repaid. Okay. All right. Yep. No, 2%.
Yeah, just a fair warning. We're government. We may not do a lot well, but we get our money. But we're very happy to lend it to our own homeowners association. We love that we're spending our money in our town. Love that. So thank you. Yeah.
So the next step will be for Homestead Condominiums Association to secure a contract with Allied Construction. And the clerk will prepare a warrant form for the treasurer to collect all funds associated with this project. So with that said, board, I recommend approval of this resolution.
Anybody have any questions on this? Okay.
Last meeting, didn't you say that interest rate was inaccurate? It was. Interest rate is 2%. I thought you said 1.5. That was the difference. No, 2%.
So we usually try to keep it at whatever we have CDs at, and usually those are 1.5%, 2%. They're now at 4 and 5, but we understand that doesn't help you out. We want you to be helped out. So, okay.
Through the chair.
Sure,
I just only I have one question. What was the percentage of the homeowners that was approved it? 58?
Any other questions? Now, they've already been notified, every single home. I
Yes.
believe we had sent out 2 letters, and I sent out a letter before, so that's 3. They know what it's costing, and there's no surprises.
No.
Okay.
No surprises.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, we actually have a, this is the one that tricks it. This is the one that makes it happen, right?
Yes.
This is the last vote.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I have a motion by trustee Boynton. I have support by trustee Kelly to lend Homestead Condominium SAD $1.68 million. Hearing no further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Congratulations. I'm excited. I live in Greenbrier. It worked out great.
Hopefully I'll go nice and smooth.
Yeah. Next item is number 3, to consider approval of a use of a pump station to route wastewater. Could somebody make a motion and read that? Through the, all right, Frazier, then Kelly.
I make a motion that we approve the use of a pump station to route wastewater from the proposed 132-unit Brookwood multifamily independent senior housing project south across Tyler Road to the existing sanitary main.
Support.
Okay. Directors, Lawrence or Power? What's going on here?
I'll take the lead on this one. It started in a sort of the planning realm, so I'll be glad to go through why this is being presented to you tonight, board. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to discuss this. There's a lot on this screen, so bear with me. But the project site that this pertains to is the proposed Brookwood multifamily senior housing site, as the supervisor mentioned. It's a roughly 44-acre parcel that's going to have 132 housing units on it near the northeast of Morton, Taylor, and Tyler Road. These are attached single-level multifamily senior housing units. The proposal, if you kind of walk through the screen left to right, that's the subject site. You can see a small box on the second image there. At that location, there's a proposal for a pump station, which is designed to pump wastewater across Tyler Road to an existing sanitary main. The pump station design details are in the packet, and they're also shown on the screen here. I'm not really equipped to talk much about the pump station design details, but Director Lawrence is here, as well as Mike Lepek from Fishbeck, our township engineer. And then we also have people from the Brookwood project team here tonight, Luke Bonner and his group. So they can speak more about the design details. But I want to just talk about the purpose for this. The purpose for this relates to a lot of the planning concerns that were addressed over the course of the project's review. The site has a lot of existing tree cover and regulated wetlands. Those were considered so important in the development of this project that there was actually a conservation easement that the developer placed over those areas. And the reason that that pertains to this proposal is because the other route for wastewater drainage would be to cut to the north to the existing sanitary main at the site adjacent to the east, which is Hickory Woods, and drop the sanitary waste gravity-wise toward that connection point. But because the conservation easement is in place and because of the importance of the wetlands and the forest cover, both because Eagle had, the state of Michigan, had some purview over those wetlands, and because the neighbors were also very concerned about maximizing tree preservation on the site, this design is meant to address those concerns by rerouting that wastewater to a point where it can be pumped to the south rather than disturbing those areas to the north. So that's broadly the purpose. This was meant to be avoided, and the alternate to this was to, and this being cutting across existing tree cover, the alternate to this was to propose a pump station. Our Township Engineering Standards Manual requires that the Board of Trustees and not the Planning Commission actually is the body that approves new pump stations and brings them into our sanitary waste disposal system. So that's why the action is in front of you tonight. And this is part of the overall engineering review and final site plan review for the Brookwood project. So if this is approved tonight, it'll be just part of the package that's presented to the Planning Commission as part of their final site plan review, which is likely going to be as soon as next Wednesday. So again, I have some other technical experts here. I'm glad to answer any questions about the planning aspect of it. And feel free.
Anybody?
Through the chair. I'm understanding that the detention pond could possibly have up to 4 feet of water.
That is a good question, Trustee Martin. That's actually for the next action on this agenda. There's two separate issues. One is this proposed pump station requires board approval. The next action I'll speak about is the part of the overall stormwater design for the project requires detention basins, and two of those, I think 5 detention basins, are going to have permanent pools that are less than 4 feet deep. That actually requires an approval from the board.
Okay, I'll ask my question. I'm sorry, I'll ask my question when we get to that then.
No problem. Thank you.
Else?
You just might talk how this is going to be paid for?
So that maybe Director Lawrence could help to weigh in on that.
To my knowledge, the way it's paid for is through the, losing my thought here. Capital charges is how it's paid for. But the initial charge will be done through the company. They'll pay for everything, and the capital charges should be set aside for future improvements to the lift station.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. It's a different business model, isn't it? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that. All right, anybody have any other questions?
I don't have any question. Money collector okay with that?
I'm kind of coming to terms with it right now.
Is the money collector okay? That's all I need to know.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna get the money, but it sounds like we're supposed to hold it and not spend it until they need it again.
Well, originally, the project will be paid for by the developer. He will pay to do the pump station. In the course of how we charge the developer, there will be capital charges. And those capital charges are what we were saying should be set aside, because we will have to assume maintenance on this project down through the years as it gets older. So by setting the capital charges aside, we will have money to rely on to pay for those charges.
All right. Okay, the Water and Sewer Board has already looked at this? Or do they even look at it?
Yes, did the Water and Sewer Board look at it?
Did the Water and Sewer Commission look at this?
No, they do not.
You're recommending that we do this, right?
Amending.
All right, it's just a different way to do it. All right, okay. I have no more questions, I guess. I'm gonna trust my director. Any questions?
No.
Any questions?
No, I'm good.
All right. Hearing no questions, we have a motion by Frazier, supported by Kelly. Hearing all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Can you come talk to me tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Number 4, discussion on to consider approval of a variance from engineering standards. Who would like to make a motion on this and read it out? I assume it's not going to be Martin.
Through the chair,
Yes, Kelly?
I'd move to consider approval of the variance from engineering standard BIA-IB of the Van Buren Township Engineering Standards Manual to allow construction of stormwater detention ponds that will have a permanent pool of stormwater less than 4 feet deep.
Support.
Okay. Director?
Okay, thank you, Board. So also pertaining to that 132-unit Brookwood project, as mentioned, there's a request for a variance from an engineering standard pertaining to stormwater detention. So the way that the stormwater detention system works in this project is through a series of detention basins and equalization pipes throughout the project. The design of this, again, I won't go into all the detail, but the way that this detention system was and stormwater management system was designed, there are 2 proposed stormwater ponds near the north end of the project site that will hold less than 4 feet of water permanently. The reason for having water being held in detention basins is for stormwater quality, to let solids suspend and drop out of the water system before it gets further down in outlets to the broader water network. And so that's the purpose for having a requirement that there's 4 feet of permanent pool in detention basin. So a deviation from that standard requires board approval. Again, I have Mike Lepek from Fishbeck here and the developer team that can help explain the reason for this design. But the bottom line of our recommendation is that one of the grounds for granting an engineering standard variance per the Township's Engineering Standards Manual is that an alternative proposed by the applicant can be or shall be adequate for the intended use and shall not substantially deviate from the performance that would be obtained by strict enforcement of the standards. What our township engineer has said is that the function of the permanent pool is to allow sediment and pollutants to settle. The applicant is requesting to use 1 foot permanent pool and 50% wetland plantings in lieu of the 4 foot permanent pool requirement. That combination of 1 foot permanent pool and wetland plantings is meant to meet the same intent. It's meant to provide stormwater quality, and these standards are consistent with Wayne County's standards for stormwater detention. So based on the recommendation of our township engineer, we would support this proposed design. And to help, I thought I had an image on the screen. I guess I don't. There's some sample images the developer, I think, would be glad to share of what that would look like in a shallower basin. But again, the recommendation here would be for approval. And just as a point of reference, there were a couple of projects last year that also had a similar issue, one being the detention basin here at the community center, as well as the detention basin used in the Kenworth project. Those are both detention basins that hold less than 4 feet of permanent pool. So the board has acted on similar designs in the recent past. If you have any questions for the developer or myself or our township engineer, I'd be glad to help field those.
I trust you, Martin, I think.
No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, trustee Frazier.
Is there any protection around there for kids, that are out there patrolling to get wet or anything? They could probably get hurt. I don't know.
So the Design of the detention basin is something that's part of the final site plan review by the Planning Commission, including any fencing. I don't believe these are designed to have fencing in this case.
It goes up.
And where exactly is this located? Is it really accessible for kids to get at, or?
It's, there are sections that are a little bit more public-facing and upfront than other sections. The overall project is a senior housing project, so you can imagine that most of the residents will be seniors. Most of these are designed to be kind of interior, kind of common open space, looking out the rears of these units. These ones that are proposed for shallower detention are kind of almost blending into the existing wetlands on the outside of the project. So I wouldn't anticipate there'd be too much concern about seeing that as, what you call an attractive nuisance. As far as the ones that are more upfront, there will be landscape screening along Tyler Road that kind of conceals that and helps to block it as well.
Through the chair, what are they going to do to make sure that it doesn't become a mosquito problem?
Regular maintenance is important. I don't know if the engineer, the design engineer is here tonight. I don't know if there's any regular maintenance recommendations. There are gonna be preserved wetlands on the site as well, so those may attract some of the same concerns that these designed detention basins would. I don't know that I have a complete answer for mosquito mitigation, but it's going to be designed in most respects like a detention basin system would be in other projects, except for these two ponds that are going to kind of blend into the existing wetland areas.
Go back to these. So it's got to go back to the Planning Commission,
Yes.
and they can add those things.
In terms of fencing,
Fencing.
we can look at that. I may have to follow up, and I'll make sure it's something that we look at going into reporting for the Planning Commission in terms of what we can require for fencing for detention basins like this. We'll definitely look at that as part of final site plan recommendations in our packets.
Through the chair. Through the chair.
I'm sorry, Trustee Boynton.
As far as the point of mosquitoes that Treasurer Bud has brought up, maybe also bring to the Planning Commission to come up with something that causes the water to move up to the point to where it does not promote mosquito growth. Okay? Maybe not a full-size fountain, but something that causes the water to move. That would help decrease the amount of mosquitoes.
Thank you, Trustee Boynton.
Yeah.
I recall that the aeration requirements for ponds have changed in recent years. We can certainly bring that up and see what we can try to bring into this project.
From a little bit of knowledge with the ponds that are in my living area, they are exactly this type of a pond. So that's why I brought up the point that I brought up.
Thank you.
At Water Woods, they do.
Trustee Martin?
I guess Trustee Frazier was reading my mind. That was my concern. Anytime I see a detention pond with that much standing water, and then always concerned about safety. And I think that I hope the Planning Commission looks seriously at some type of fence, but not a cheap chain link fence, but some kind of decorative wrought iron or something fence that will blend into the surroundings and also keep people safe. I mean, not only kids can get into the pond, but adults can also have an accident or whatever and fall into it as well. So it's for the overall safety, not just necessarily children. Since it is a senior living development, you would expect it to be more adults there, and I just think it's a good idea to look into the safety of it.
All right, hearing any other discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Trustee Kelly, supported by Trustee Boynton, to approve this. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much, Director.
Thank you.
We move on to the next one, which is an agreement between the Charter Township of Van Buren and the City of Romulus regarding water services on Hannon Road. Can I get a motion?
I make the motion, we approve resolution, 2023-15 between the township and the city of Romulus for the provision of water services at 13560 Hannon Road.
Okay. Support. Mr. Boynton. Okay. Director?
Yes, asking you guys to consider approval of Resolution 202315, agreement between Van Buren Township and the City of Romulus. Currently, the township does not have facilities to accommodate this address at 13560 Hannon Road. Currently, we have about 50 township residents that are on City of Romulus water. So for this address, I'm asking that we enter into agreement for them to provide water service at this address.
Any questions on something that we seem to do regularly? The guy needs water, it's across the street. Let him go get it. He can go get it, I guess. We have to approve allowing him to get it. Hearing no discussion, I have a motion by Trustee Frazier, supported by Trustee Boynton. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is consider approval of recognizing June 19th, also known as Juneteenth, as an official holiday in Van Buren Township. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move we approve recognizing June 19th, also known as Juneteenth, as an official holiday in Van Buren Township.
Support.
It actually was brought by the clerk. I'm going to give him the opportunity to be the supporter. Okay, Trustee Bryington. Okay. So you guys brought it, Trustee, this is one brought forward by Trustee Martin and Clerk Wright, and they have made requests for us to acknowledge the holiday as an official holiday in Van Buren Township, but that's all you've requested. So go ahead and talk. It's your presentation.
Just a little brief history on Juneteenth. A lot of people don't know what it is or its significance. In late August 1619, enslaved Africans landed at Point Comfort, now called Fort Monroe in Hampton, Virginia. This was 16 months before the Mayflower landed at Plymouth Bay, Massachusetts. Before June 19th, 1865, Africans and their descendants had been enslaved for 246 years. Juneteenth, National Independence Day, commemorates the emancipation of enslaved African Americans, deriving its name from combining June and 19th. It is celebrated on the anniversary of the order by Major General Gordon Granger, proclaiming freedom for enslaved people in Texas on June 19, 1865, which was 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. No, I got one more thing. June 19th not only is a monumental moment in the history of African Americans, but also a pivotal time in the history of this country. Juneteenth is a federal holiday, and Van Buren Township should also recognize this day and make June 19th a township holiday.
Look right.
Okay, before we go into my little speech, I'm gonna answer the question that John Delaney asked in regards to why it wasn't negotiated. It was on the negotiation table for ASME, and it was turned down. So it was on the negotiation table. It wasn't nothing new. It's nothing new to ASME. They actually asked for Juneteenth to be observed as a holiday, and it was not approved. So this is something that, I mean, while there's nothing that I can say or do to reverse the horrific treatment endured by my ancestors, I feel that recognition of this date will only give remembrance of what they went through. Juneteenth marks the day when Union General Gordon Ranger arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, to announce the end of slavery more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. This highlighted event that delayed enforcement of the emancipation in remote parts of the country, freeing 250,000 enslaved people that had not been informed of their freedom. This holiday was federally recognized in 2021, but celebrations date back to 1960 Civil Rights Movement. Juneteenth is a newly found celebration of African American culture, heritage, and contribution to society. It provides an occasion to honor the traditions, music, food, and art that originates in the African American community. Recognizing Juneteenth help raises awareness about the continued fight for racial equality and justice. It serves as a reminder of the progress African Americans have made in pursuit of civil rights, while acknowledging changes need to address symptomatic racism. By recognizing Juneteenth, it encourages people to engage in conversations about race, social justice, and continued effort needed to create more equitable society. This holiday holds culture and historical significance and deserves recognition to bring attention to racial inequalities that still exist. I want to note some communities around us that do observe. Communities that observe the holiday by closing their township or city or township hall includes the state of Michigan, who we say we always follow the lead, Wayne County, Canton Township, Lansing, Ann Arbor, Howell, Royal Oak, did I mention Howell? City of Monroe, Palmer Township, Southgate, Millerville, Kalamazoo, Chesterfield Township, Grand Haven, Pontiac, Southfield, South Lyon, Ingram County, Portage, Midland County, Armada Township. See, some of these townships I'm reading is very rural and very remote in regards to African American population. Grand Rapids, Muskegon Township, and City of Detroit. And also currently, 30% of private employees offer Juneteenth as a paid holiday, according to the International Foundation of Employee Benefits. So if we're gonna follow the lead and we're gonna recognize things that we need to recognize in regard to saying that we wanna be this premier community that recognize all our ethnic groups within our community, we need to show that not only that we can talk the talk, that we walk the walk also. And walking the walk is doing things that we think that's right to engage in things that's going to promote not only the community, but also make people feel that they're welcome to this community by engaging in different types of cultural holidays and events. I know that it was negotiated as an item on the contract, but that doesn't mean that the unions don't run the contract. We do. I mean, the township, we do. And sometimes decisions have to be made by people that run the township and not the unions. So with this being said, what I'm requesting, because I don't think that you can recognize a holiday without actually sitting down the township. We on a 4-day work schedule, which is Monday through Thursday. So what I'm asking that any day that Juneteenth falls on a regular schedule work day, that the township be shut down. Giving you Thursday, Friday, Saturday for ASME and salary employee that doesn't affect, but public safety, it would affect because they're 24. And I did some numbers that, roughly numbers from public safety that can tell you what the financial impact would be for public safety, would be about $22,400 a year.
Okay, just a housekeeping. You've changed your motion. You just wanted to recognize June 19th. Now you're asking for June 19th to be celebrated as a day off.
Well, I don't think we can
And pay
recognize it
the
without.
employees.
How else can we?
Just so I know what's
Right,
going on.
right. I'm just,
Is that what you want to do?
yeah, because I don't think there's no other way to recognize it other
Well,
than that.
there's lots of ways. You could have parades, you could have day of reflection, you can.
Is it possible for us to recognize it as a holiday? And I'm asking, is it possible for us to recognize it as a holiday, get that taken care of, and then we work along with our staff directors as a whole and figure out the logistics as far as how we go about celebrating it? But I think right now, if we recognize it, get it on the books that it is a holiday in the township, we can figure out how we can celebrate it.
There's no more deserving holiday. And so recognizing the holiday, not a problem.
Chair,
Okay.
the holiday has already been recognized by the federal government and the state of Michigan. We would recognize it by making it a paid holiday. That's the recognition. It's already a holiday. It's already recognized. The federal government and the state has recognized it.
That's why that's
I can
why
amend my
I'm
motion.
asking you to change your thing, because you're asking to recognize something we've already recognized.
I can amend my motion.
That'd be fine. It's your motion.
Through the chair, I would amend my motion to say that Van Buren Township consider making June 19th, also known as Juneteenth, an official holiday and a paid day off for township employees.
Okay. Trustee Boynton, do you want to support? So, okay. So, all right. I'm ready to talk, but if you guys want to talk. Yeah.
I would just make the holidays have always gone through the ASME contract, and whatever the ASME contract has, those were the holidays that were passed on to everybody else. When ASME wanted to have Martin Luther King Day as a paid holiday, they gave up Columbus Day, which is in October, which is also a federal holiday, but we do not have that day off. So that is a federal holiday. I think we can recognize that June 19th is a holiday without necessarily having to have the day off. And it did go to the union contract, and they turned it down because of the concessions that we wanted, and they didn't want to go along with that, so they just, it didn't happen. So I'm not sure that this is the way that we ought to go about this, because it just sets a whole different process of what has always happened before.
Yeah.
I agree with Clerk Wright that we are the managers. We manage the township. We dictate what holidays they have. I don't think that's a negotiable issue. No, you did try to negotiate it, but you wanted them to give up a day for this to be a holiday. And no, they weren't going for that, and I don't think that they should have, that mic keeps cutting out. I don't think that they should have.
Okay, so, first of all, we've always negotiated with the union any days off. That's why they gave up Columbus Day and took, what day did they take? Right, and they took Martin Luther King Day. They also asked for New Year's Eve, which is not a holiday.
They gave up Good Friday and the day after Thanksgiving.
They did that when we went to 4-day work weeks, okay? But
That's
they
what-
also
that's what
picked
we
up.
That's what we ratified in the contract, though.
Considering the contract issues, would we, as the managers, be able to draw up, say, a MOU or a resolution and present that with to the unions for them to
I am sure that if you
ratify
tell the unions you
afterwards?
want to give them a paid day off, that they will not have a problem with it. So, yeah.
Then that's what we need to do.
But
That's
it's
why
gonna
I
cost
said
you a lot of money. This is not $20,000, please. I'm sure that isn't got the fringes in it, which is about 30%. Then you've got fire. Then you've got water and sewer, which are gonna have to work probably. A public service is probably gonna have to work a little bit. We've got a community center we've got coming in. I'm guessing you're talking about a $40,000 expense, winging it, okay? It could be.
We don't shut
yeah.
down the community center now when we shut down. I mean,
No,
we
but now you're gonna have to pay them time and a half and double time.
No, you won't.
Yes, you do, because
They
you're
will be
gonna have to
part-time
have.
employees. We're not gonna pay them.
You can't have a holiday for this person, not for this
Most
person.
everyone that works in the parks they don't even fall under union contract. They're part-time employees. And the ASME and salary
And
already.
maybe we could
Let me
negotiate that.
Let me finish. ASME and salary already has a set salary, so there's no implication to them. Only implications is public safety because they work 24 hours, 7 days a week. So that's the only implication. That's what I brought forth, because we're not changing any of their salaries. We're just giving them the day off. The salary is still gonna stay the same. Only thing you're doing is paying for an extra holiday.
First of all, I'd love to have Juneteenth. I'd rather have June off. It's a admirable holiday. There's probably no bigger black mark on this country than the slavery, and getting rid of it should be reflected on. It should be talked about. It should be celebrated, and I'm all for this holiday. What I'm against is the way you're doing it, not going through the negotiation with the unions, because we're on 4-day work weeks. They already have abundance of days off. And giving them another day off, it doesn't seem fair to me. That's my problem. That is my problem. That was my problem last time it was brought up, and it's still my problem.
Through the chair, the 4-day work
I know
week is
that.
notwithstanding. That has nothing to do with it. That's something that this board agreed to do, and that has nothing to do with what holidays they get and don't get. That has nothing to do with it. They work a 40-hour week. It's 4 days, but they work a 40-hour
They also get
week.
an abundance of holidays off. They get New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve off. They get a lot of personal days off. It just,
All that was negotiated, though.
but that's true. So why can't we negotiate this?
Through the chair.
We did negotiate it.
And you didn't
And
wanna-
we
you didn't
dropped
wanna
2
consider-
holidays.
Because I came in, you gave this to me. If you
Kelly?
told me to go back to renegotiate, at least give us a shot.
It's nothing to be negotiated.
I really appreciated Trustee Boynton's suggestion. There are a lot of logistics here to try to work out for next year. I've heard 3 different ideas on scheduling, on how to handle it. I think Clerk Wright presented one way of it being a floating holiday that would move with it.
Right.
There are a couple different ways it needs to be addressed and needs to be looked
We
at.
have a year to figure out how we're
And
gonna
so
do it, but that's my
appreciate-
request.
Yep, I really appreciate Trustee Boynton's suggestion on recognizing the day, and then we can work through the logistics as it goes forward, instead of trying to do this in an open meeting and trying to work out things that we need a lot of data on, I think, before.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and again, I will work very hard to make sure it happens. I always do when I say I will, but.
I'm okay with that. You ain't gonna get no argument out of me. I'm bringing it forth because I was for it when we negotiated, and I'm still for it now. I ain't nothing hidden, no hidden agenda.
Trustee
I
Frazier?
don't see what the big deal is. It's a federal holiday that happened in 2021, and it's a valid holiday that should be recognized. Official holiday in Van Buren Township. It's a major milestone in American history.
Agreed.
And something that regretfully is our past, and it should be corrected. And I think recognizing June 19th as an official holiday is well-deserved.
We have a year. Can you give us a couple months to see what we can come up with? You can always bring it back.
What's the big deal? We either
Going to change.
recognize it or we don't.
He's out of order. He's out of order. He's out of order. John, you're out of order,
John,
please.
I
Well,
don't wanna-
I'm not telling you anything. I'm saying you're out.
John-
I'm saying you're out of order, and you're out of order.
John, if you don't stop right now, I'm gonna ask you to leave, and I will bring somebody in. Okay? And I'm not that good at it sometimes. I should have heard you and jumped on it.
Yell at me.
All right, okay, so
Through the chair.
Okay, so go ahead, Treasurer Bud.
Like Don Boynton said, that maybe we could work out. I do know one township that, rather than close the township down on that day, they recognized the day, but they gave everybody a floating holiday so they could use it on a day so that the township didn't have to be closed. It didn't affect 24/7 operations because people were not all taking it at the same time. I don't know if that would be something you'd be favorable to looking at or not. It's just a thought.
Through the chair. I don't see, it's a.
Yeah,
it's
I
a
want the township to recognize
holiday.
Juneteenth as it's already been recognized as a federal holiday. We need to do, I want us to do something to recognize it, other than saying, yes, it's Juneteenth. Whether it's a floating holiday, whatever, but it can't be anything that's saying, okay, well, we recognize it. Well, yeah, I recognize it too, but that's not recognizing anything. Something has to be significant, has to be done significant to recognize something, just like I recognize it, maybe the years of service that you have in the township. There's something significant has to be done to recognize that. I can't just say, well, Sherry has 35 years and I appreciate that. That's not recognizing anything. It has to be something that's showing that we recognize it. So, and it's a holiday. Yeah, we all know this it's a federal holiday, but how are we going to recognize it over and board than just saying we know it's a federal holiday? And I know, yeah, it's something significant. It may be some more significant to me and others than it is everybody, but it is a significant. I appreciate Trustee Frazier bringing that out. It's a significant milestone that can. I think that's something I need to chair, and in a sense, because it's something dear to me, and it's the only thing that I can do. I can't, like I said in the beginning, I can't change anything that happened, but I can change the course of the future. And that's the only thing that I'm trying to do.
So are you, okay, so it sounds like you want to change your resolution, your discussion to basically come up with a way to honor this day, whether it be a day off, a floating day, or whatever it ends up being, and negotiate with the union.
I don't want to I'm not going to negotiate anything. We're going to say it. I don't need to negotiate.
My motion is going to stand as I've restated it. Now, you can figure out the logistics after that, whether it's going to be a floating holiday or it's going to be June 19th or however. My motion as I've mentioned, is going to, I'm not changing it.
I think through the chair, I think it's a federal holiday. Come on, get with the program. It should be recognized on June 19th as an official holiday in Van Buren Township to recognize an important event in American history. A sad one, but important.
Chair, also, I'm going to retract part of what I said. I think it should be on June 19th, because if you do anything and deviate from that, you dilute the meaning of the significance of the actual day. So it'll be on Juneteenth. That'll be. And I don't understand the opposition. I don't understand the opposition.
The opposition simply, for me, it's simple. I'm not against June 19th. I'd love to have a day off in June. I think this is a very noble cause. But we do have union contracts. We have issues with the unions. And we're basically just saying, here, have another day off that's going to cost the township $40,000 and not asking for anything to make anything better in the situations that we do have out there. We have a community center that's going to be a long discussion.
So we negotiated that, and we didn't get any.
Never negotiated the community center yet. There's sections of that are not done.
The community center negotiated on the contract. We got a 4-year contract.
Through the chair.
I can't have these negotiations here at the table. You're going to go into a closed meeting, we can.
We got a 4-year contract with ASME that we just approved.
Can I have something to say, but Trustee Kelly, I don't mean to take anything away from the chair, but Go ahead, you go.
Go ahead, trustee Boyd. I was gonna ask for clarification after we're done talking because the motion's shifted a couple times, so I was just gonna ask where we
It
were.
hasn't been redone. Right now, it's the one where they basically, it's a day off on June 19th. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's a day off with pay.
A day off with pay on June 19th, with no union negotiation, just give
And
it.
it will be explained on what the day represents.
Are you ready for the vote?
Our residents. That June 10th,
She explained.
it's enslaved African Americans were freed.
Okay.
I think that needs to be, pointed out. That's why we're having the day. It's a sad day in American history, but
Are we ready to vote? Call the question.
All right, question's been called. We're gonna have a roll call vote to call the question. The answer is, are you going to vote on it or not? Clerk, could you call the roll for calling the question?
Call the roll for calling the question. Trustee Kelly?
Yes.
Trustee Martin?
Yes.
Trustee Borden?
Yes.
Trustee Frazier?
yes.
Treasurer Bud?
Reluctantly, I will vote yes, but I don't think it's the right way to do it, but
We're just calling the question now. We're not doing the,
Okay, all right.
June 19th.
I guess I want to know what
Yeah,
the
that's-
motion
yeah,
is
they
gonna
ca-
be.
Yeah.
What is the motion?
Well, the motion right now is there gonna be a motion?
Oh, okay.
Yes for me, Supervisor?
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, so now what is the motion?
You made the motion.
I'm not sure how exactly you want it worded, but it's recognizing June 19th, also known as Juneteenth, as an official holiday in Van Buren Township with a paid day off for employees. Right? Okay.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
All right, we have a motion. Is the motion still stand by Martin and Boynton? I'm looking at the clerk.
Through the chair.
I was wondering what you were looking at me for. You're looking at her.
The motion is, as the clerk has read, that the township will recognize June 19th as, also known as Juneteenth, as an official Van Buren Township holiday with a paid day off for employees.
I am for the holiday. I'm just absolutely aghast at the way we're doing it. This is not the way
I'm sorry,
to run a
Supervisor.
business.
Point of order. We have called the question, so only thing we can do now is vote.
That's a good point of order. He's correct. Okay, clerk, call the roll. We're doing, you know what, I can't see why anybody would vote no at this point now, because you can't. All right. All right, so hearing no further discussion, we have a call to question. The question is called. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Motion passes.
Thank you, board.
All right. A new voting booth. Go ahead, Clerk Wright. I'm still trying to take this in.
Non-agenda item, I guess. The contract negotiation has nothing to do with what the board does. That's two separate things.
We have many issues with the unions, and we.
You may
and-
have,
and
I don't. Don't say we. But anyway.
Van Buren does, but go on.
Number 7.
Clerk Wright, would you please make that motion?
Chair, if I may, I'm sorry, Clerk Wright. I am not one to throw anything under the bus, and let it get run down. And I know that's not a real good analogy that I'm making, but basically what I'm saying is this. When you sit down, or when we sit down to figure out how we're going to do this, give me a call. I will share that heartache with everyone else. I will work on it. I will work through it. I will work in it to get it done. That's basically what I want to say.
It's done. You voted, it's done.
It's done.
It's done.
Nothing to
Okay.
take out.
If there's anything extra that needs to be done, I'll do it.
Okay, Clerk Wright, would you like to make the motion number 7?
I'd like to make the motion, consider approval of new voting booths for the Van Buren Township elections at a cost of $48,335 from Election Source.
Can I get a second? Okay, Clerk Wright, is this yours?
Yeah.
Take it.
I'm requesting that we replace all voting booths that's used to vote on any given elections. This is my 15th year as clerk, and we haven't been, voting booths hasn't been replaced in 15 years. They are dilapidating, and plus they're falling apart essentially. Also, let me bring to fact that the schools has reluctantly stopped assisting in the setup of the booths. So the booths that we have now that are dilapidating, you have to take them out of a briefcase like carrier, and you have to actually set them up and set them out, and then you have to break them down and put them away. That's time consuming for the employees that we have to take to each precinct and set them up ourselves now, and also the fact that they're deteriorating. It's time was time to look at replacement, and I thought that this was a good time to look at it, since I'm going to be asking that these monies come from the MMRMA fund that we have.
The what fund?
MMR, Michigan Risk Management Authority. We have a balance in there that would easily cover the purchase of these booths. And we will look at a community that we'll put it out, John. We will put the old booths out, we always do, to a community to see who is in need, and anyone that's in need, or surrounding community or any other community, we'll be happy to donate them. So with that being said, I would ask for the board to approve these, the booth. They're well needed. I have a sample of them.
Yeah. No.
Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, we have a fund balance in there. So the township would not be paying for it, yeah. I'm soft-spoken, so I hope you can hear me. These are the booths that we're looking at purchasing, and one of the reasons why is because of the durability and the travelability of it. Instead of having to put them out together and store them all separately, these fit into each
Hearing
other.
at home.
Like so. And you can use that 10 or even a dozen at a time. And then easily to set up, they're already set up. You just take them out of the travel trailer and take them into the precinct and line them up. These sides come off if we want them off, but I don't want to take them off. They also, we're going to be purchasing stickers that goes on them, indicate the Van Buren Township election. And we'll be open truck. Come to a flag guy. Hopefully try to put a flag on each one of them.
That right there.
So there won't be any question on where's the flag. So that's the plan.
Okay. All right, any questions?
Through the chair. I have one question. I believe there's a question earlier of what we were going to be doing with the old booths during public comment.
Clerk?
Yeah, we're gonna reach out to neighboring communities or someone in need, and hopefully be able to donate the ones that's still operational.
Thank you.
The chair. There's nothing more sacred than a vote in American history. And to secure that is so important. The old ones have lasted for 15 years. I mean,
More.
more than that. And so it's time to replace them. Everything gets replaced. I think this is a reasonable cost, $48,000, and it's a good thing for the community to update their voting booths.
And did I give what's the quantity? How many is it? 110. 110.
There's 10 for each precinct, and then there's one ADA accessible booth per precinct.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Yep. Okay, hearing none. I have a motion by Clerk Wright, supported by Trustee Kelly. Hearing no further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Motion passes. Next item is discussion on consider approval of a collection and management contract for residential trash. Can I get a motion? Trustee Frazier, and then Clerk Wright. Director Akers.
Good evening, Board. At the April 4th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, Van Buren Township Board of Trustees, we awarded the bid for solid waste services to Waste Management, and staff was directed to negotiate an agreement and bring it back for approval. Over the past several weeks, Township staff has been working with Waste Management and our legal counsel to come to terms on a contract for services, and before you this evening is a finalized version of that contract. This contract addresses our solid waste services and has many provisions which clearly establishes the roles and responsibilities of waste management in the township. The only notable change I do want to highlight, which is different than what we had previously discussed, is with regards to the purchase of an additional cart. Under the contract, for those residents who want to purchase a second trash or recycling cart, after July 1st, they will be required to pay an additional $6 per month fee, or $3 per month for a 64-gallon cart directly to Waste Management for the servicing of that cart. I do want to highlight a couple clarifications, though, just to avoid confusion. So all households under the contract are going to be provided with a 64-gallon recycling cart under the contract at no additional cost. The majority of households do already have a trash cart, but new households that are built or those with missing or stolen carts will receive their first trash cart at no additional cost. If a resident has already previously purchased a second trash or recycling cart before July 1st, 2023, they will not be charged any additional fees. And I want to highlight again that this only applies to new carts purchased after July 1st, 2023. There is one other minor adjustment that I wanted to highlight. Staff and Waste Management caught a minor error in the contract. On page 21, under item number 4, there's an amnesty period where carts can be exchanged for a 64 and a 96-gallon size. That amnesty period should be 6 months instead of 60 days. And so as a result of that, we have updated the contract, and that's been addressed. The contract has been reviewed by our attorney that the township is working with in this matter and is recommended for approval. This concludes my summary. Myself and our representative from Waste Management, Chantel LaForest, who is attending virtually, are available for any questions the board may have.
Any questions? Everybody that's out there that does not have containers that they need to start this on July 1st, will get them when?
So we're working with Waste Management to get a firm date for when the recycling carts are going to be delivered. Right now, we're anticipating it's going to be closer towards the end of the summer, but when we have a more firm date from the manufacturer as to when those carts are going to be delivered, we're going to make sure it's put out on social media and put out in all our regular communication channels.
And the landfill passes are not part of this negotiation, or?
They are not. They're established in our host community agreement, and there is not a single thing changing about that program.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
through the chair, I'd just like to say Waste Management has done as far as I'm concerned, a good job in Van Buren Township and collecting the trash, and they're always good about the recyclables. And I appreciate the work that they've done on our residents' behalf.
Okay. All right, I have a motion by trustee Frazier and supported by clerk Wright. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Congratulations, Chantel.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Discussion on and to consider approval of a special land use request for Belleville Yacht Club. Can I get a motion?
Through the chair,
I think, does he do it now?
Yep, first.
for the motion.
I still haven't decided what I'm going to.
Well, through the chair, from a procedural standpoint, if we're coming up with a question of a conflict, typically it's not the board member that gets to decide whether there's a conflict. The rest of the board would have to make a determination after it's presented to the board. So at this point, I'd like to mention to the board that I believe I have a conflict under on this agenda item. I'm a member of the BYC. I live on the lake. I also use the docks quite a bit, probably at least 2 or 3 times a week. So I have a personal kind of stake in the docks that are going to be brought up on the next agenda item. I've raised this issue before when I was on the planning commission. However, it's not my decision on whether or not I stay on this agenda item. I believe I can be fair on this. However, I wanted to bring this to the board's attention before we move forward, and it would be the board's decision on whether or not I sit on this item.
Okay, I could say the same thing. I have a legal opinion that says I do not have to recuse myself. I don't have a financial interest, and that is pretty much the underlying factor of this whole thing. I have sat on boards before where if you're a member of a club, you don't have to recuse yourself. It goes on forever and ever. But I guess I can leave it up to the board because it's pretty much a done issue, I think. So I will leave it to the board whether or not I am to be recused, like the trustee Kelly.
Through the chair, I guess I would say because of being at the planning commission and being at the hearings that we had, it was the general consensus of just about everybody that either called in, wrote in, or stood up, that they really thought members of the BYC should recuse themselves and not vote on this matter. So for that, I would make a motion that we recuse Brian Kelly and Kevin McNamara from this vote.
Support.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Frazier?
No,
No?
no. I don't want to recuse them.
Trustee Kelly?
I can't vote on.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Trustee Martin? Yes. Trustee Boyden? Yes. I also think that you should recuse yourself. Treasurer Bud?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, can I get a motion for item number 9?
I make the motion to consider approval of the use of pump station, I'm sorry, what am I reading? I make a motion to consider approval of special land use requested by Belleville Yacht Club for planning case 22-059 Marina special approval for 831 East Huron River Drive.
Do I have a second?
Support.
Okay, I leave Director Powers.
Okay, thank you, Board of Trustees. Here tonight is also the applicant, Scott Jones, who represents Belleville Yacht Club, so I'm sure he'd be able to help answer some questions on this case. I hope my slides can work. This case has some complexity to it, so I wanted to give a few slides to give some background of the decision-making process. Here on the screen, you can see the subject site. It's located at 831 East Huron River Drive. It's a roughly 4-acre site. It's zoned as R1C, single-family residential. The use of the property is as a private club with a pool and an accessory building. The adjacent surface area in the township lake has a different zoning designation. Everywhere that's got lake adjacency has an upland zoning and also a zoning within the township lake property. And so that's a distinction that's important to make for a case like this. Any use other than a single family residence is typically going to be designated what's called BLB, non-residential lake shoreline district under our Belleville Lake Shoreline Ordinance. And so that's what applies to the BYC site. It is not a single family residential use, so it opens this site up to other potential uses, which allows it to be pursued as a marina. A marina is a special land use in the BLB Lakeshore District. What this request really is formalizing a use on the site that existed in some form over the years. There were two floating dock structures that you can see on the top section of the screen here that existed in 2020. The total width of those two combined structures was roughly 120 feet. They extended almost to the side lot lines on both sides. They had a 56-foot depth into the lake. Around that time, some removal and reconstruction began. I won't go into all the details unless asked, but there was a code enforcement process that resulted in a court direction to the township to work through a viable zoning review process for this request. And so that's where we are here at this point. A couple of years later, it took some time for staff and the applicant
You can't close the door.
to
You can't close the door, so they just need to be quiet.
can try to speak up. So the result of that process was to look at different options for how a use like this and how the docks as proposed could be reviewed. And at one point, one of the issues that was identified was that the proposed dock structures would be longer than the required limit of 40 feet into the lake. And building new permanent dock structures that had that length would require either a zoning ordinance amendment or what's called an exception from the Township Lake Shoreline District's ordinance requirements. And so after reviewing the possibility of a zoning ordinance text amendment, we looked at, kind of ruled that out as something that the people who worked on the Lakeshore Ordinance determined would not be favorable because it would apply too generally. So in that case, we looked at the exception process with the BZA, which I'll talk about more in depth in a little bit. But going back to just the essence of the site plan here, what you had previously was two floating dock structures, a total coverage of 120 by 56, and what you now have is a proposed two sets of dock structures, 90.6 feet by 85.3 feet combined. The review process for permanently establishing this use on the site is first, and that's under section 3.120B15 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. The first step is local approval or local authorization under section 3.120 of the zoning ordinance, which is the Belleville Lake Shoreline District Ordinance. That applies to everything from individual households with boat houses to larger projects such as this. The local approval process also includes any necessary special exceptions from the BZA under section 3.120F7, which includes the requested excess length of the docks. Once the project goes through a local approval process here, it will go through an EGLE permitting process. There's a 20-day noticing period and comment period from EGLE. We believe this application requires FERC approval as well. And the final approval then happens after pending local authorization to apply to EGLE approval and FERC approval if necessary. At that point, construction can begin for any necessary permits that are issued locally. So I'll get into the plan contents. The proposed plan is mostly captured on this image here. The plan includes a lot of detailed notes and a use description that limit the hours of operation, prohibit things like pump out service and fueling. By the way, those are things that distinguish this from a typical, what you'd consider a typical marina. There won't be any fueling here, any of the more intensive uses that you see at many marinas. Hours of operation are clarified in the plan. The proposed use has what are kind of viewed as boat parking spaces. There are 16 of them that are identified by cleats. So what you see here is a typical 28-foot by 8-foot wide boat with or 8.5-foot wide boat that has cleat spaces that identify where those boats will be parked. There's detailed dimensions on the plan, dock structure and setback dimensions. So the length of the docks being 85.3 feet, the setbacks being 21 feet from each side lake lot line. There are also some details regarding the overall picture. These were some of the details that the Planning Commission requested over the course of their review. The overall impact on the waterway in Belleville Lake and the view around the site. So there's a depiction of the overall dock length on this side, the no wake zone around the south and north shores of Belleville Lake at this point, which is 100 feet. The navigable waterway between those no wake zones, which ends up being 551 feet past the no wake zone on the south and toward the no wake zone on the north, based on this dock layout. And then a typical buildable zone around the north shore, which is 40 feet. The submittals also included a lighting detail, which also looks familiar. If those of you that are familiar with the boardwalk project at French Landing Dam, these were lighting improvements that were found to be low impact and inset into the dock structure. So those were submitted by the applicant as being kind of low impact in terms of lighting detail. Dock material was presented. Womanized lumber is what the dock material is going to be remaining. And the water depth at the furthest extent of the dock, being 13.2 feet, was also shown. The plans also show locations of ladder, life ring, and address marker for the site. I'll just summarize these points. I won't go through them one by one, but the Planning Commission's role here was to recommend special approval as well as to grant site plan approval. So under a few sections of our zoning ordinance, there are development regulations, approval criteria, and general site plan requirements that the Planning Commission looked at for the content of the submittals and for the site plan approval requirements. There's also special approval criteria with any recommendation for special use to the Board of Trustees that we review periodically under section 12.306 of the zoning ordinance. Promoting socially and economically desirable land use, being necessary for public convenience at the site's location, compatibility with the adjacent uses of land, protection of public health, safety, and welfare, adequate service by public services and utilities, not being injurious to property in the surrounding neighborhood, consideration of the natural environment and conservation, cohering with permitted uses and special land uses in the property zoning district, and meeting design standards in that district, and being related to the valid exercise of the township's police power. At the end of this process, the Planning Commission at the June 14th meeting recommended conditional site plan approval and a recommendation on special approval to you on the Board of Trustees. The conditions included that there would be no buoys at the end of the docks, that a concern regarding some of the language in the township's FERC license would be addressed, and that specific item pertained to a 75-foot requirement under the FERC license, which was addressed in the Planning Commission meeting. That Eagle and FERC approval must be met if required. That this use complies with our general ordinance pertaining to the environment regarding uses of township lake property. That no boat or part of boat shall extend past the 85.3-foot mark while docked. That there are 16 maximum watercraft parked at the site. That there's no fueling, no pumping. That there are details on the reflective tape, which the applicant provided at the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission also had to approve a maximum frontage of 68.9%. The Planning Commission has to review anything that covers more than 60% of the frontage of a lot. Again, the dock surface and material, and then that images or elevation drawings would be submitted for review by the Planning Commission or staff. There were some images were shown at the Planning Commission meeting. So based on those conditions, the Planning Commission did grant site plan approval and recommended special approval to the Township Board. This process has been very involved. There's been a lot of public feedback. I'm sorry, let me go back. There was a public hearing for the exception request with the BZA first on January 10th. There was then a public hearing for the marina special land use with the Planning Commission on January 11th. Many comments were received on this project, and the comments have been regularly updated. If you're curious, there's a spot on our township website where you can review a page pertaining to development and planning in the township. And if you click on that, you'll find a tab specifically about the BYC project, and you can click a link to all the comments. And just to show you what that looks like, I'm not sure if it's going to show with this screen up. There you go. It's probably going to take a minute to load.
Do no good now, we voting.
I'll show you, yeah, I'll try to get back to that when I can get to it. I'm not sure what this is doing, but there were a lot of comments on the review, and there's some minutes in your packet that show some of those comments. The Planning Commission met on February 8th. The BZA met on March 14th and May 9th, and ultimately approved the special exception for the dock length on May 9th. And then again, the Planning Commission met on June 14th to recommend the approval of the special use and the site plan. They voted to approve the site plan. So now the case is before the Board of Trustees to consider special approval for the marina as a permanent use on that site. And if approved here, the application will then move on to Eagle and presumably FERC as well. We had to get through the local approval process first before those applications were formalized. And so I'll leave this image up on the screen just as, again, a kind of a zoom in of the site plan details, but I'm glad to answer any questions about the project, and I know Mr. Jones is here to answer questions as well.
Is there any questions?
Just a clarification that the application going to Eagle and FERC can't proceed until you clear with us first.
That's our understanding of the zoning ordinance that was written for the Belleville Lake shoreline. The process is that any local authorization happens first, and then the application can be made to Eagle and FERC after that. So that would have to clear the board first.
Okay. But if they come back with a no, then it's done?
We look at what that means for the overall process. We'd have to look at whether that means there's a way to apply for a modified site plan or what the process would be at that point. But yes, it would have to go back through a local approval process at that point.
The whole thing? He's nodding, yeah.
Most likely, yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
And just to say again, the Planning Commission looked at it, and then, of course, it was sent to the BZA because we could not justify, or we could not legally talk about the length of those docks. So it went to the BZA, and they came up with what they sent back, their autonomous board. So we no longer had anything to say about that. Now it was just the design and the application for the marina. So that's what we acted on. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
I don't have a question, I just have a statement. I mean, as long as the Planning Commission has vetted it, and you said it's been, the VZA has vetted it, it's the reason why I don't go to Planning Commission, so I don't get in the process to deter any decision. But if you guys say it's okay, I'm basing my decision basically on your recommendation, because I haven't gotten any opposition personally. No, I've not been contacted. And then the website you relating to is too late now because I'm going to get ready to vote. But I can't look at it before I cast this vote. But I'm casting my vote based on the Planning Commission recommendations. So.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you for your consideration.
I think we will have the supervisor and Brian walking back here shortly. Well, we can ask if there's any public comment on any non-agenda items. Non-agenda items, yes.
good, good.
I gotta be real careful on how I word this, because I know how these things work.
Future stuff.
Do we have the attention of the board, or we still, because I want your full undivided attention. Are we ready? Okay. First thing I want to state, and then I'll come back around to it, because I got to make sure I phrase this right, so I'm not in any violations of the Board Meeting Act or anything. But I don't want to get it twisted, and I want it to be very well stated that as an advocate of this township for all township residents, and have been identified in the past as an ombudsman, three administrations before, that I'm looking out for the whole township, not just one thing. So I don't want to get it twisted that what I'm looking at is this township being open as many days as we can get it open. I was against the 4-day work week to begin with, because that's one less day that a senior or something could come in here. So that being said, without broaching on any holidays, my issue is, as long as the township door is open, you're serving the township. When the township door is closed, the only service we get is public safety. That's all I'm looking for, to keep the doors open as many hours a week as possible for the township residents. Doesn't matter about holidays or anything else, or snow days, or anything that shuts the township down, because it takes away the services for the residents. That's the bottom line. So moving forward, I had mentioned, and I've been talking about this for years, ever since Paul White was sitting there and changed things, the structure of the meeting agendas. The way it was prior to Paul White's tenure, or his sitting in that chair, the structure of the agenda was, before a vote was commenced or finished, in the dialogue for any of the new or old business, then a township resident had a chance to see how the sausage was made and could come up and say something then. Right now, I have to have ESP to figure out what you guys are going to think before I can make a comment. And true to form, what happened tonight is there was a change in the motion that was publicized. So technically, residents didn't get to see or find out until what they read tomorrow or what they saw on YouTube tonight, because there was a motion that was changed. So the document here states one thing, but the motion was for something else. So that being said, in the agenda criteria, prior to Clerk Wright and Paul White and that agenda, the agenda got changed. I want to say the structure was 2010, 2011, that the township board, because there was so much animosity, that they cut the public comments to an area before you got to see how the sausage was made. So whether you, and actually we had the positive action of seeing a board work study the day before, so residents still had a chance. But what tonight showed was there was actually a dialogue and a change and a thought process and a vote that the residents we didn't get to think about or see because it wasn't on the agenda. So I'm just taking a little liberty here to say, let's look at our agenda so we can go back to the way it was 20 years ago. Sherry, Treasurer Bud, you were part of that. From Jay Cokes to Foster to everybody, Cindy King and on, the meeting agenda was to allow the residents to see how the sausage was made before the vote. And 9 times out of 10, nobody's going to come up and interrupt the meeting or say anything anyways. But if there was a question asked, how can you ask a question if you don't know what the subject was, if the subject changed in the middle of the program? So look into that it might take a month or so to digest this, and look into the way the board meetings are, so that if there's any discussion or a change, that we're all brought up to speed, so that there's transparency and there's a spotlight that everybody gets to see things. It's not in the dark. That's all I'm saying. So I'm asking, with due respect, and submitting a question that can the agenda be changed back to what it was prior to 2010, where the residents get to see your dialogue, because since we don't have maybe 3 or 4 work studies a year now, and it's for certain special topics, the residents don't get to see how the sausage was made. Okay, and I keep alluding to that, but we don't understand how it goes. And if the packet isn't complete, then you don't get to see that. Okay, well, I had 2 other things, actually. One was the roads. And this is something that we've gone to Al Hadius in the past for, that there's a lot of ponding, whether it's in the summertime or in the wintertime, because Wayne County Road Commission is the worst thing that governs this township, but all communities, is the shoulders of the roads have so much vegetation growing up on the sides of them, whether it's a dirt road or whether it's concrete. And so with that vegetation, it blocks the water from runoff to get into the county ditches. For example, if you go down Morton Taylor on the concrete end, in the summertime after a big rain, the water washes out the whole road because the vegetation has grown up, which is causing the dirt to puddle and dam the water from getting to the shoulder into the ditches. Why doesn't somebody in the township tell Al Hattius, which is our commissioner,
We had a meeting about 3 months ago.
to
They said they were
scrape
gonna
that
fix it.
vegetation?
They're not,
They haven't been
they're
doing it.
doing better than they were, but not
We've been
really.
asking for 20 years that. Scrape that vegetation off so that you have runoff. And Leon has addressed this.
I've addressed this several times.
So we're not getting anywhere with Al Hattius, so let's drag him in
Okay,
here.
I'm gonna give you like 30 seconds more.
Supervisor, invite Al Hattius in here so we can have a discussion then. If this dialogue isn't getting anywhere else, get him in here. They used to call him the mayor of Wayne and all that other stuff, but he is
Got
our
20 and he
representative.
never he always answers his phone.
Well, bring him in here then, because we've had this conversation 8 years ago. Leon's brought it up because of the trash. The trash piles up in the same areas because it doesn't make it into the bar ditches.
Thank you, Mr. Zernian. Is anybody else want to speak? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here about that damn deer that's 100 yards from the township hall. You guys got money for everything. You wear fancy shirts and signs and you talk about all the things you do, how much pride you take in our township, how much you love our township, everything you do for our township, and you let that deer sit down there dead. You ain't got two people that work for this township that have enough pride, care for Mother Nature, pride in their job, pride in their township, that they won't pick up that deer. You don't have two people that work at this township that's got pride to get that deer out of the road. There's no excuse that it's Wayne County's road, that it's a deer from Ypsilanti, maybe, Mr. Boynton, that it's not our deer, that it wandered from another township. Why can we not take care of that? Now, last time we had election, I picked up a little bitty fawn that was hit on election day. Everybody drove by it again. Nobody cares enough that works here or for Wayne County roads. Don't pass it off to somebody else. This is our township. These are our deer. Take some damn pride. I'm sick of it. You can tell somebody to go pick that deer up. If you do it between 2 or 3 days, it don't even stink. Does anybody even know that? Anything they get on their hands will wash off. Disgusting.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All right, anybody else wish to speak? No? Seriously, you already had your second bye. All right, anybody from the board wish to make comment?
Yeah, go ahead. I just want to say that I've already got a text message from our former deputy, Joanne Montgomery, asking for some of the booth that you related this to. She said, save me some booths, please. Us poor folks in the Northwood could use some. And those ones you chosen are awesome.
Oh, okay,
But she's a clerk in a township up north, where she resides.
Trustee Martin?
To the chair. Earlier this evening, when I was coming into the meeting, one of the residents is from Homestead that said something to me about on the corner, the intersection of Ecorse and Belleville Road, there's a lot of broken branches and trees that some of them are real close to the roadway. I know that's not necessarily our
I know
township
what you're
purview,
talking
but,
about.
Oh, you probably pass it every day. So she asked, could something be done with that? And I told her I would mention it, and
Yeah,
hopefully
I'll
we
get
can-
with Director Lockett. We don't, obviously, Ms. Ryan knows, we don't pick up deers, but we will take care of that deer.
Somebody needs to start picking them up.
And we don't take care of the sticks on the side of the road or the trees we push them back, what the cops do, and we make sure that they're off the roadway. But sometimes they're not much more than this. Then
Or
the
we
county
can-
comes through, but we'll take care of that one.
County to
Yeah.
expedite that.
We'll just take care of this.
Thank you.
It's been there a while.
Through the
Through the
chair.
chair.
Go ahead. Sherry.
Reggie, I'd like to address your concern. A few years ago, there was a dead deer out in front of the township hall. And I did care, and I'm not even saying other people saw it. I did get a DPW person to get the deer off the road. I did not know this deer was there, or I probably would have gone after that one too, because I don't go that way.
I'm just saying, it's gotta be somebody's job. We can't be waiting on Wayne County, for God's sakes.
For what you're saying, because they don't look good against the side of the road, and because it was here, we did get it moved, and I'm sure we will get this one moved.
The sooner you move it, the easier it is. It's not rocket scientist stuff.
I didn't know it was still there.
I'd have gone after it, but I don't travel that way, so I didn't know it was there.
I thought we were getting some deer signs for there. Well, I sure asked for them
You did,
a couple years ago.
yeah.
I'll make them, for God's sakes, I guess.
All right, I'm sorry, Clerk Wright.
One last comment. I mean, when something is correct and right, I have to agree. I have to agree with both what Reggie Ion is saying and what John Lane is saying. In regards to the side of the roads, the reason why we have a lot of puddling on our roads are because of the vegetation growing and not allowing the water to run off the side of the road, which causes an issue. If some is puddling in the road, it could cause a drivability issue. The other issue is dead animals on the side of the road or in the streets. If I see one, I do call. If we call ordinance, they will remove them. But our problem is that we can't see everything. I can't see everything, so. Yeah, but we can't see everything, but you're right. The animals do need to be removed from the roads. Skunks, deers, that could cause an issue also. I mean, I don't know what we can do other than we can put more pressure on Wayne County. We keep saying Wayne County, but we are the voices too. Let's put some pressure on Wayne County. I mean, there's seven of us that has access, and you have bigger access to Wayne County. You one of the biggest voices down there, Kevin.
We called in the deer.
Put some pressure on Wayne County to do what they're supposed to do. We pay taxes. There need to be pressure put on. They need to clean the side of the roads. They need to remove stuff off the freeway. They need to cut the branches back from the side of the road. We need to put more pressure. We need to use our voice. We're voted to use our voice for the constituent, and we should use it when we can. It is a little bit more we can do than say it's a Wayne County job. I know Al hears a lot of stuff, but maybe we need to go to a Wayne County Commission board meeting or something. I don't know. But it need to be more done.
Okay, hold on. Now, okay, you're right, it does. And we did have a meeting on that, and it was over at DDA. We're there. I mean, it was a full
DDA?
board. We had a DDA, we had a full table. Everybody from the deputy county executive on down. And one of the big issues was the way they're cutting these roads.
Oh, you said you guys had a meeting. Oh,
We did, and we also had a meeting on how we were gonna go about getting money from the legislature for the bridge and things like that. So we did a lot of things in that meeting, but some things didn't get done, and that was one of them. They didn't do it right, and we do need to come back on it. But I mean, nailing Wayne County every time is.
well, we're not,
yeah.
but I think we got some
They're actually
liability
doing
in
a
it
lot
too.
for us, so.
We have some liability in
Yeah,
it too. I
okay.
mean, doing budget here, I'm gonna bring forth
Yeah.
a issue I think need to be addressed in regards to how we solve some of these issues. I mean, we can keep
And
pushing.
quite frankly, we're going through every single street now, you know that. I mean, we're picking up every piece of trash that we can from the north on down. The board approved that. I mean, we're doing stuff that hasn't been done here in 30, 40 years.
I agree. We're doing a great job. I've acknowledged that already. But I'm just saying we can
Okay.
do more.
You get more money than you ever have to, let me remind you of that.
That's why we are a community, because we protect ourselves. The problem is, whatever happened to the term that predates you, Kevin? What happened to the Wayne County Road Commission?
They're gone.
Yeah, no kidding.
They don't
They didn't do
exist.
anything then, and nothing got replaced.
Yeah. All right, does the board have anything?
Through the chair,
Trustee
I have
Martin?
one more quick thing. I know it's been a long meeting, but I would like, and I spoke to you about this a couple of weeks ago. I would like this board to formulate a letter, sign a letter to Wayne County Road Commission about a turn light at the corner of Belleville Road and Tyler Road. I am, you hear they did a traffic study. Well, let me see the traffic study. You say they did it, but the traffic studies
We
don't
did it.
drive. Well, I drive that road quite frequently, going southbound on Belleville Road. If you're trying to make a left turn onto Tyler, you may make a turn, you may not, and it may be a couple of cycles depending on how far back you are in the line. Traffic continue, I don't know what kind of traffic study, but people come through the yellow light, they're in the right turn lane and they realize, oh, that's not a through lane, I gotta get over, and then they make lane changes and they go through that light that's yellow and red and you're still stuck there trying to make a left turn.
I totally agree. I've been looking, and I was just in a turn signal light Monday that has 50% less traffic than Belleville Road. And they have a turn signal light, and I was amazed. I'm like, they got a turn signal light here, how they get it here? I have sit on, not only on Belleville Road, I have sit at Tyler and Belleville Road and waited 4 lights before I could turn left onto Belleville
We're
Road.
planning on putting a light up there. I mean, we've got plans, definitive plans. I think Director Akers wants to talk about that. I mean, we have a plan. We have a definitive plan with money in the bank for it.
Plan up.
So as part, just to address it, as part of the Belleville Road reconstruction project between Tyler and Ecorse Road, improvements to that road are being made to where we can put a traffic signal with a left-hand turn light. That project is scheduled for 2025. So that's unfortunately the earliest that we can
2025.
reconstruct the road to get that
I don't think we
light
need to
changed over.
I'm sorry, Ron.
But this is the first I've heard of that, but I think 2025 is still, you talking another year.
Road to put a turn signal at an intersection, that's crazy.
The county has to agree to allow us to do it, and
That's
they
why
will not.
that's why I want this board to write a letter, we each sign it, and we send it to them, and we will keep sending it to them until they say, okay, yeah, let's do it. You know, we sit back and we
I'm
just say.
happy to do that. I just don't think it's gonna do any good. But if
Well,
you want to write the letter, you can bring it forward and we'll vote on it so we can all sign it.
Well,
We can send it in.
If we don't do it, it really won't do any good, so.
We have written letters and we've attached traffic studies to them, and they didn't do any good. But I will do whatever you want to do to try and get it done, but I don't see any other way to do this.
Kevin, I understand that, but we don't have 2 years to have people taking chances out there. You know, you got a guy that turns left, and I'm like, oh my God, he's taking a big chance because the car barreling down on him. I'm sorry, Kevin, we have to be, we got to be proactive, we got to do something. Now,
I agree
if we
with
write
you.
the letter and they say no, then okay, then we wait a week and we send them another letter.
I agree with you to the point where you guys allowed me to spend $10,000 to have a study done to prove that it needed a light.
How does the traffic study prove that? I want to see that traffic study.
Unfortunately, it didn't. Go ahead.
I totally equivalent,
I want to see
disagree
that
with that
study.
traffic.
I want to see how it determined that, based on
They-
what?
So they had Fishback prepare a evaluation of it to look at whether or not we could do a light. One of the challenges that they had for doing a left-hand turn signal is when you're going on Belleville Road northbound, there's not enough sight distance, which we all know, but there's not enough sight distance to keep that to have a left-hand turn signal flashing yellow while traffic is moving. And because of that, there were concerns, and I can share the traffic study, and I'll make sure I share it with the board, but there were concerns that traffic would back up along the turning lane and it would cause other issues. But that's just going from recollection. I'll make sure I share that
It's
traffic
already
study
backing
with
up.
the board.
It's backing up already.
So then you have a dedicated left turn lane where the light doesn't flash on the turn. When it turns green, then you turn. And And that's that. You don't have to worry about a flashing light. That's a simple solution. I don't see how that can be a big problem. You make a dedicated left turn lane, left turn only on green arrow. Then that,
I don't get a lot of calls about anything in Van Buren Township, but I get a lot of response regarding that traffic light. And,
way quite a bit. And
That's
I
why I've
know
tried to get
it's
it done twice now. Like, it's just,
trying until it happens.
I am. I've got a long game in 2025 now.
That's too long, that's too long to wait.
I don't know how else to do it.
Somebody's gonna,
Somebody's gonna get killed there.
dangerous intersection. I don't care how you cut it. It's a dangerous intersection, and we need to do something sooner than 2 years.
We can't do anything without Wayne County?
Yeah, it's their road, their light.
Their route, yeah.
Gotta stay on them, just like you stay on them about
I didn't- I
cutting
mean,
the ditches and the sides and.
I didn't get killed, but I had an accident there. I've
I
got
have
hit
too.
by a car.
I have too.
You know,
Couple years
you get hurt, but I've had an accident there, so that's why I know it's there. And it's just a time before, just waiting, ticking time clock before somebody get seriously hurt there.
Disaster waiting.
Because people take chances. I saw people today, they take chances. They turning when they shouldn't be turning, and the car is bearing down on them. And I'm not, this is not dwelling on you, I agree with Trustee Martin. We need to put pressure on who the powers that be. And if that don't work, then we think about them next time it's time for them to vote for them.
I'm just asking this board to, let's do something. Let's not just say, well, we did it, or we did it, it didn't happen.
I'm saying write
let's
the
do
letter.
something.
You can have Director Akers help you, Director Lockett help you. I'll even help you.
Deputy supervisor, he can write it.
It's been a long evening, and with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I support.
I got support, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
I didn't mean to belabor that for as long as it.
I know.
As long as it went. But it's something I talked about